The departure gate speaker crackled with the final boarding call, and Nia Brooks tightened her grip on the boarding pass she'd paid for with her own money. Around her, travelers rushed past with rolling suitcases, but she stood still, waiting for Ethan to look her in the eye. He didn't. He lowered his voice instead, like he was trying to keep the words small enough to disappear. "Can you do this one favor?" Vanessa changed her mind. "She wants to come. She'll take your seat." Nia blinked. She wanted to laugh, but nothing about this felt funny. "I asked her 3 times, Ethan. 3 times before I booked these flights. She said she wasn't interested." "I know, but she's here now and you want me to give up my seat." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was the answer, the same silence he'd used 100 times before, the one that always meant his family came first and she was supposed to understand that. 12 hours. That's how long the overnight bus would take. 12 hours alone on a bus while Vanessa boarded the flight Nia had researched for weeks, compared prices for, planned down to the last connecting gate. She looked at Ethan's face, searching for some version of him that might say no, not this time. She didn't find him, so she smiled. Okay. No argument. No tears. No scene. She reached into her bag, pulled out the boarding pass, and handed it to Vanessa, who took it without so much as a thank you, already scrolling through her phone. Nia turned around. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking steady against the tile, and somewhere behind her, she heard Ethan call her name once. She didn't turn back. That was the moment she disappeared from their lives, though none of them would understand what that meant until much later. For 7 years, Nia had been the reason the Carter family functioned. She organized every birthday, every anniversary, every Thanksgiving dinner that ended in laughter instead of chaos. She remembered which of Ethan's cousins was allergic to shellfish and which of his aunts needed a wheelchair-accessible venue. She booked hotels months in advance, always finding the best rates, always sending calendar invites so nobody forgot. She bought thoughtful gifts for people who never asked what she wanted for her own birthday. She reminded Ethan when it was time to call his mother, because he'd forget otherwise, and then Margaret would call Nia instead, asking why her son didn't care anymore. Nia always smoothed it over. She always had an answer, an apology, a fix. When something went wrong, the blame landed on her. When something went right, credit found its way to Ethan, or to whichever Carter happened to be standing closest. She'd noticed the pattern years ago. She just hadn't known what to do with the noticing, so she kept doing what she always did. She absorbed it quietly the way she'd absorbed everything else. The Italy trip was supposed to be different. Nia had spent 4 months on it, comparing flights, negotiating hotel rates, arranging a driver for the older relatives, booking restaurant reservations that required calling weeks in advance. She'd built an itinerary so precise that even the museum tickets were timed to avoid the worst of the tourist crowds. Before she confirmed anything, she'd called Vanessa. More than once. "Are you sure you're not coming?" "I'm sure, Nia. Not really my thing." She'd asked again 2 weeks later just to be certain and gotten the same answer. So she'd booked exactly enough seats for the people who'd committed. It was the responsible thing to do. It was the thing anyone would have done. The night before their flight, Vanessa called Ethan. "I changed my mind. I want to come." Ethan didn't tell his sister it was too late. He didn't tell her the flights were full, that seats didn't materialize out of nowhere, that this wasn't how any of it worked. Instead, he turned to his wife the way he always did when the family needed something Nia would have to provide. "You always understand." For words. That was all it took. Nia stood in their kitchen holding a stack of hotel confirmations, and something inside her went very quiet. Not angry, quiet, like a switch had been found after years of searching in the dark. She understood, in that moment, that she had spent years being everyone's understanding person while no one had ever once tried to understand her. She gave up her seat again. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply nodded and made the calls to rearrange the reservations so Vanessa could have her spot. But something had changed, and it wasn't something anyone in that family would notice until it was far too late to fix. After they left for the airport, Nia sat alone in the house they'd built together, and she made a decision that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with clarity. She picked up her phone. She opened her contacts, and she began, one by one, to disappear. If you've ever given everything to people who never noticed, stay with this story. It's about to get a lot more interesting. Make sure you're subscribed because what happens next changes everything. By the time the family landed in Rome, Nia had already changed her phone number. She deleted the shared family calendar she'd built and maintained for 6 years, the one that held every birthday, every appointment, every reminder that kept the Carters from colliding with their own forgetfulness. She logged out of the group chats. She unfollowed everyone, then blocked the ones who wouldn't take the hint. She didn't post an angry message. She didn't write a goodbye. She just stopped. Ethan called first, 3 days into the trip, when he realized the restaurant reservation in Florence had vanished from his phone. "Hey, did something happen to the Florence booking? I can't find the confirmation." No answer. He called again the next day, then the day after that. Each call went straight to a number that no longer existed. He told himself she was busy. He told himself she'd explain everything when he got home. He did not yet understand that busy wasn't the word for what was happening. When the family returned, the unraveling began slowly, then all at once. A birthday dinner for Margaret's sister was forgotten entirely, because Nia had always been the one who remembered and sent the reminder 3 days ahead. Nobody else had ever needed to hold that date in their head. A hotel reservation for a cousin's wedding weekend expired because the deposit deadline had quietly passed. The kind of deadline Nia used to track in a spreadsheet nobody else knew existed. A graduation party got double-booked with a doctor's appointment, because the family calendar that used to catch these collisions had disappeared along with its creator. Thanksgiving arrived, and there was no reservation at all, because Nia had always been the one who called in August to secure the private room before it filled up. This year, in August, nobody had thought to. Christmas gifts never arrived for half the family's children, because Nia had always kept a list, cross-referenced with sizes and interests, updated every year without anyone asking her to. Ethan missed an important work conference in Atlanta because Nia had always handled his travel arrangements, quietly in the background, the way she handled everything. This time, no one printed his boarding pass. No one reminded him the night before. He simply woke up too late, and by the time he understood his mistake, the flight was gone. Sitting in his empty kitchen, missed conference notes still open on his laptop, Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. How did she do all of this? How did I never notice? Vanessa complained first, loudest, about the double-booked party, blaming Nia for leaving without warning, as though warning had ever been owed to people who'd never once asked what Nia needed. Margaret blamed her too, at first, muttering about how ungrateful it was to abandon family over one silly flight. But even Margaret, months later, sitting alone at a table meant for 12 that only 8 people remembered to attend, finally said what none of them wanted to say out loud. "We never once thanked her." Not really. Did we? Nobody answered because they all already knew. Nearly 5 months after Italy, Ethan found the notebooks while searching for an old tax document in the garage. 3 of them, spiral-bound, filled front to back in Nia's handwriting. Family birthdays going back a decade. Favorite meals for every relative, including preferences he hadn't even remembered they had. Medical appointments, follow-up dates, prescription renewals for his own mother. Gift ideas, updated year after year, sometimes with notes like, "Loved this last time," or "Already has one, try something else." Emergency contacts, travel plans stretching 2 years into a future none of them would ever see with her in it. He sat on the garage floor and read through pages that documented 7 years of quiet devotion to people who had rarely bothered to look up and notice her. He thought about every apology she'd made for things that were never her fault. Every time he'd chosen his family's comfort over his wife's exhaustion. Every "you always understand" that he'd said like a compliment, when really it had been a demand dressed up as praise. The realization sat heavy in his chest for weeks. He didn't call anyone. He didn't explain it to his mother or his sister. He just sat with it the way Nia must have sat with things for years, alone. Almost a year after the airport, Ethan found himself at a community leadership event downtown, there for a client's charity gala. Across the room, he saw her. She looked different, not colder, steadier. She wore her confidence the way some people wear a coat they finally grew into. Someone introduced her as the founder of one of the city's most respected event planning firms, and the room actually listened when she spoke. He waited until she was alone near the drink table before he approached. Nia. She turned, and there was no flinch in her expression. No old softness rushing in to fill the silence for him. Just calm. Ethan. You look incredible. Your company. Everything I'm hearing about it. Thank you. He exhaled, steadying himself. I found your notebooks. In the garage. I read all of them. Something flickered in her eyes, but she didn't speak, so he kept going. I spent years confusing your kindness for obligation. I let everyone in my family treat you like a resource instead of a person, and I never once stood between you and them. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive that. I just needed you to know I finally see it. Nia studied him for a long moment. It was never about the plane seat, Ethan. It was about every year before it, when I made myself smaller so everyone else could feel comfortable. I know that now. I hope you do. For whoever comes after me. She didn't say if there would be a chance for him to be that person again. She simply thanked him for finally understanding, and let the moment settle between them without forcing it into an ending it hadn't earned yet. Whether they found their way back to each other, or simply parted as two people who once shared a life, is a conversation for another day. But if this story moved you, if you've ever been the one holding everything together while no one noticed, tell us in the comments. Like this video if you believe respect should never require disappearing to earn it. And subscribe because stories like Nia's are only just beginning.